We're celebrating the Low Flyers, which was an incredible club out of Santa Monica. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about it today. I'd like to introduce the panelists to you. I'll start from my left, your right. You've all heard of Hilborn fuel injection. Mr. Stuart Hilborn owned the first hot rod to go 150 miles an hour back in 1948. He developed his fuel injection system, and before long it was standard on every car in the Indy 500, and he's still producing them today, some 60 years later. Next is Phil Remington. We're also celebrating Phil's 90th birthday, which is around today, but he's hugely responsible for the Cobra and the Ford GT program, and has worked for Dan Gurney for about 40 years and is still doing so. Incredible craftsman and fabricator. One of our moderators, the next one to my left, is Alex Xydias, who started SoCal Speed Shop shortly after he got out of the war, which was one of the very first speed shops in Southern California. He and his partner, Dean Batchelor, built a streamliner that set top speed of the meet at the first Bonneville Nationals in 1949. Was the second hot rod to go over 200 miles an hour. And in 1952, Alex himself drove his flathead powered belly tank to 198 miles an hour, naturally aspirated. Next to my right, another moderator is Jim Miller. Jim goes back, he's got great roots. His grandfather, Eddie Miller, was a Duesenberg factory driver during the Ward track and the Indy eras, and also assisted Mr. Hilborn. His dad, Eddie Miller Jr., built this beautiful Pontiac powered Lakester to my right here, the brown car that's been restored by Don Ferguson Jr. and took first place at Pebble Beach last year. Next is Bob Wenz, who Tony Thacker says had the world's greatest 27 Roadster. It was channeled and the Model A frame, and it was the rear tires were just even with the deck lid, and he went 128 miles an hour in it in 1948, and he went on to a great career in road racing later on. Mr. Bob Wenz. And the little guy on the end there is Dick Megugarac, better known as Magoo. And he likes to say he was the kid of the bunch. He was the youngest guy in the club, and they let him tag along with them back in the 40s. He went on to a great career as a rod builder, built America's most beautiful roadster with a Ferrari powered 32, built a lot of incredible hot rods, and now is enjoying his retirement in Arizona. And we're thrilled to have Dick Megugarac, Magoo, here as well. And Dan Webb is our host tonight, and made the duplicate plaques for the members, the Low Flyers Club, and Dan's a great friend of the museum, and we want to thank him very much, Mr. Dan Webb.
To start off with, I think I only ran once or twice before the war. At that time, Edwards Air Force Base was called Muroc, and I had a 34 Ford convertible with a chop top, and I'd pull the fenders off and go run it at the lakes. I think I only went about 95 miles an hour. I think that to get in the Low Flyers Club, you had to run 90 miles an hour. So we used to time people down on Sepulveda Boulevard, not where the airport is now. We'd set up a quarter-mile trap, and once they went 90 miles an hour, then they were eligible to get in the club. But there wasn't a lot of real quick cars before the war. There were some special cars. Some of the guys had modified sprint cars and a couple of semi-streamliners, but nobody was going very quickly in those days.
I was thinking, because I know after the war, these guys over here were racing on the streets. Did you guys race on the streets before the war?
Yeah, once in a while. We used to go to the midget races at Gilmore Stadium in L.A. And then we'd, after the race were over, we'd go to this malt shop of Twin Barrels, I think they call it. And we'd look around and find out who we were going to choose to race with. So we'd get together and go out on Sepulveda. At that time, there was very little traffic on it. It was a pretty long, smooth road. In fact, I remember there was one fellow, a Japanese gardener named Mino Kamimura. He had a 4-port Riley on Model A, which was damn quick in Roadster. He'd go up there and hang around, and choose off some of the guys. At that time, there weren't many AV8s. Mostly they were all 4-cylinder cars, but sometimes he'd have the gardening equipment in the back of his car. We'd go out there and we'd drag race until a cop showed up, and then we'd all head out in the bean field before the law would catch up with us. But we didn't do that too many times. We figured it was getting a little risky, so we kind of backed off on that.
Mino was a gardener in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I got to know him. I worked in the gas station on Sunset Boulevard, and he would come in with his roaster with the lawnmower in the back and everything. And I was amazed that he was one of the top 10 roadsters at the lakes and everything. He and drove that thing all the time, no big deal in town. There was quite a Japanese environment in those days. There were several really talented Japanese guys. Danny Sakaya, and somebody said maybe his family was here today.
Oh, perfect.
Really? Oh, great. My two favorite modifieds were Danny's and this gentleman's. They were both quite similar. They both had that long look with a nice grill on the front and everything. And Danny was really ahead of his time too, so I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Alex, how about Connie Weidel, the Cadillac? Wasn't he the first guy to put a Cadillac in a flathead Cadillac?
I think he was. Yeah.
Because everybody used to chase him and try to beat him.
That was a giant flathead Cadillac.
Yeah,
Must have
yeah.
weighed 20
Yeah.
million tons or
Yeah.
something.
Something
God.
like that.
Well, it looked like it came out of a tank. It probably did.
Yeah.
It was this giant flathead.
Pretty close.
Well, there was a fellow named Tony Capana ran a giant, I think it was a Marmon, and it was about as big as this table, but
Yeah.
he didn't go a heck of a lot faster than some of the guys with the smaller cars.
That was a V16.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The trouble with the lakes was that trying to tune your car for more speed was so difficult because the wind would be different, the course would be different. You could only go once a month, and by the time you tried something, you weren't sure you really learned a lot. Unless you were Stuart Hilborn and you found out that an injector worked better than carburetors.
Special brew.
But it was difficult to tune a car, and once they started getting the dynos, it became a lot more professional.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Yeah.
Washington, Sepulveda. Everybody'd gather there and somebody'd choose somebody off and off we go.
Yeah. Stu, I don't know if you know it, your intake manifold is still running today. The one with 3 carburetors and the big one in the corner?
His dad was the originator of that thing. I think it was a special system that they built for Stu Streamliner.
No, I saw that about 4 years ago on the T-bucket there, and I walked up to the guy, and I was just in shock when I saw it. I said, the last time I saw that, I was in high school. And he said, you know about it? And I said, damn betcha I do. And I said, it belonged to Stu, and he knew you. And it's still running today. 3 carburetors and 1 big one on a T-bucket. Runs like hell. And that's from the 40s.
Yeah.
Someplace in there.
Another speed secret.
Yeah, right.
The problem with that distribution of fuel between all the cylinders to make it even, the only way you could do it is throw the carburetor away and put a carburetor on each hole. Well, that was Eddie Miller's idea. But when we went to the junkyards to get these, we got to thinking we had a problem with one location where one cylinder opens directly after the other. So part of the time, both cylinders are open. So that's not even distribution. Eddie and I both grumbled about that. So Eddie said, well, let's put on the smaller, well, let's see. The smaller units could go on one in each cylinder and put the big one on where the trouble was. And just use half of it. So actually what we ended up with was 5 of them altogether. Now that divided the fuel up beautifully from cylinder to cylinder to cylinder. So we had no difficulties at all with the fuel from there on. And that was Eddie Miller's idea, and you still see pictures of it around today.
Yeah.
Is it true that the low flyers had a club and helmet?
Yeah, we had one helmet for the whole club along with a one chain hoist.
What size?
It was a fits-all.
There